Welcome to another video on the Order, what everyone else thinks of as the Illuminati. And the first thing, Royce has asked me to point out that there was in fact a bit of a problem with the diagram I showed you on the last video, and that is I hadn't labelled the fact that there's a difference between the Order itself, which is this black bulb in the middle, and the outer Order, which is around here. The outer Order being the ones who are in communication with the secret society level and also in communication with the inner order. And this is why you've got this sort of blurring here, because not all of these inner order members are in communication with anyone apart from themselves. And where Royce himself sat, he was with the proctors, but he was attached to one of the guys who were on this fringe area that sometimes contacted the outer order and sometimes didn't. But he did jobs all the way through, basically, at the behest of this person, so he's got a fair amount of experience of all the levels. Now, I must apologise for the fact this video has taken some time to get to you. This is because my agreement with Royce is that he sees every video before I release it, and or at least the part that he's in, and he's taken a little while this time because he had health issues, so I hope you'll forgive him for that. Anyway, on to this portion of the interview, in which we will talk a bit about more about the history of the Illuminati, how to recognise order members if you can, and a little bit on the way that they recruit, or rather reproduce themselves, which is quite interesting. So Royce, how would you go about recognising an order member? I mean, if you were me and you were walking about in the middle of the road, or in Trafalgar Square or somewhere, could you look around you and say, oh yes, that's an order member, or is it a little more difficult than that?
You're trying to get me killed? No, there's a big difference between the inner circle, if you like, the 300 or so members of the Order, and the rest of the people involved. That difference is, you're never going to know them. I know 3, and only 3, and if you were to ask me to look into a crowd and pull out members of the Order, I wouldn't be able to do it. Now, the good reasons for this: they hide, and they're very good at hiding. They've been doing it for over 1,000 years now. Over 1,000 years. And basically, if you want to stand a chance of finding somebody who's in this inner 300, then your best bet is to look around you. Do you know someone and you don't know where they live? You don't know how they actually support themselves. You've got no idea of who their friends are, and you talk to them, and like a politician, they'll say nothing. This is how they're trained. They're trained like this, and they walk through the world and they don't leave a trace, not a trace, no tracks. They don't have credit cards, they don't have birth certificates, they've got false passports, they have no dealings with banks. Everything's done through shell companies, and if they've got a debit card or whatever, then it's not traceable to them. It goes to a shell company somewhere in Delaware. So your chances of finding out who these people are, very, very remote. They're not often walking around on the streets, you understand. They just don't do it. They keep themselves very much to themselves. They live a very, very quiet life. Now, the outer order, which I think is probably 2,000 of them, that's a bit of a different kettle of fish. These people have to interact with those in the secret societies and the like, so they actually have to come out, and it's one of these people that I was working for. Yeah, they have jobs. They have to have jobs in order to blend in. They have bank accounts, credit cards, anything anyone else has got, they've got too. And the main difference is they're never short of money. Usually you can't figure out where the money's coming from. And they also have a lot of backup from people like the proctors that I used to work with. I'm trying to think exactly how you would identify one of these people, because these are the only people you would stand a chance of actually identifying. It's difficult for me to say, really. What I would look for, I would look for somebody who moves in the higher circles but is deliberately not famous. Someone who is in the background of any photographs, newspaper photographs that are taken, but is never the actual subject of them. Somebody where you can point at someone who's been with celebrities a lot and been with politicians a lot and industry leaders, but you can't put a name to them. And these people tend to be out of order. This is the more accessible arm of the order, so to speak.
So if I understand this correctly, you're really saying that it's very, very difficult to recognise an order member, and if someone is outed as an order member, you can be absolutely sure that they're not. Is that right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. If you think they might be a member of some secret society or whatever, then they're definitely not in the order. Because the order avoids such things like the plague. They use them, they communicate with them, but they're never members. The same with celebrities. I mean, all of these people who publicly seem to have something to do with world affairs and seem to influence politicians and all the rest of it, these are never actual order members. These are people they use. And sure, they may think, a lot of them, that they're in charge, especially the industry leaders. But in reality, it's the quiet little man behind the scenes who calls all the shots. And there's a lot of ways that they do this. And they can do it by blackmail. Now, you've had a lot of scandals just recently with child molesters and paedophiles and the like, and black magic and all the rest of it. And this is actually order members keeping the secret society level under control. And they know, because they've been involved in all these things, and they deliberately pick people that do have something to hide as well. So they know they have ultimate control over the people in the outer circles. So there's always this cut-off between anyone who might be suspected of being a member of the Illuminati, as the populists would call it. There's always that dichotomy there that if you suspect that they're in there, then they're not going to be. That's not who they are. The people that control it are well hidden.
So let's move on a bit to order history. You say you don't know a huge amount about that, but you must have heard some talk. So specifically, I've heard it said that, and it appears in this document I've got in my hand actually, that the Illuminati, the Order, have actually played a major part in the past of humanity, and current immigration policies. And are they actually influenced by the Illuminati? I keep saying the Illuminati, the Order. Is this just a big red herring? And how does it relate to some of the other things that we've actually talked about?
Yes, that's right. According to their own words, they were responsible originally for the spreading of the human race all over the globe. And that carries on today. You know all the controversy there is about immigration, and the fact that people from Africa now are in every single continent. People from China, people from Asia are in every single continent. This is deliberate. This is deliberate order policy, because they have realized at one time apparently they let the human race nearly die out. Now when I say die out, there were about 10 or 20,000 people left, but that just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to ensure that there was a good, I've forgotten what the geneticists call it, some sort of population, but it wasn't enough to ensure that the human race was very healthy. It's one of the reasons why, one of the differences actually I forgot to mention earlier, between the Order members and ourselves is they tend to be a lot more healthy. and this is genetic, and this is why they keep the bloodlines going. And even in the outer circles, some of them they keep the bloodlines, and the emphasis is on family and they intermarry between certain Order families. That's dying out a bit now because they found a new way to keep the Order going. And I don't know if you'd like me to talk about that a bit, because it would certainly open some people's eyes to what's going on.
I think Royce, everybody knows that the people in charge of this planet seem to place an awful lot of emphasis on bloodline and hereditary, and certainly, obviously, genetics probably plays a part in that. But can you enlighten us a bit more about why they're not breeding anymore? I mean, they found some new way of reproducing themselves, perhaps?
Okay, well, we'll talk about that a bit. One of the technologies that they've had on their target list for an awful long time has been human cloning. I think it was 2003 or 2004 when somebody managed to clone a sheep from an adult cell. To say that this awoke a lot of interest in the Order is a bit of an understatement. Within weeks, there were scientists who'd been recruited to apply this knowledge and to make sure that the Order's clinics, which we mentioned earlier, were capable of cloning human beings. So now the Order don't actually reproduce apart from cloning. So as you can tell, they're now genetically self-sufficient. But they're still worried about population loss because although they want to reduce the world's population, which I can see you've got on your list there to talk about, although they want to reduce the world population, they don't want it to go too far because they need some people. And they need the capability of perhaps rebuilding if things go drastically wrong before they've managed to get off planet. And getting off planet is one of their major aims. And you've got all these private space companies going at the moment, and there's a very good reason for that.
But Royce, some of the things that you're talking about here, I mean, they require an awful long time to actually mature. Nobody plans that far ahead, do they? I mean, you're talking decades or maybe even hundreds of years. And it just beggars belief that anyone would actually plan that far ahead. How do they manage to do that?
Well, of course, yes. You have to remember that the Order, they're very long-lived anyway. I mean, they've known about things that are now becoming mainstream, if you like, knowledge, medical knowledge. They've known about some of these things for hundreds of years, like the effects of aspirin and other painkillers on prolonging life, vitamin C, and various other things that they've been taking for a long time. I mean, this is a whole field in which they're very interested in, gerontology, I think it's called. Yeah, they're very long-lived indeed. I mean, I met one gentleman, he looked about 85, 80, something like that. And he claimed to be 240. Now, I got no reason to disbelieve him because I've never known an Order member to tell a direct lie. I mentioned before they had some kind of religion. A part of this religion is not lying, and I think the Mormons, is it the Mormons or, I've forgotten who it is now. It's one of the Christian sects anyway, they're the same. They say people shouldn't lie, and I think that's a good idea myself. But I can believe that they have members who now might go on to maybe 300 or 400 years. So they take a very long-term view on things like this human cloning, it doesn't upset them. Yeah, they kicked it off and they've stopped breeding because they know it's going to be a success. Apparently, there are babies about already, and I should say they're just coming up to their teens now that have been through this process, and it's been a success as far as they're concerned, from what I can gather. So you can expect lots of little order members coming around very shortly. No, not really. They keep the numbers very strictly controlled.